The day began like any other, with the sound of my alarm dragging me out of bed and into another busy day at the clinic. Henry, my husband, had left the day before for a business trip. He was a successful lawyer, always jetting off to important meetings and conferences. The house felt empty without him, but I had grown used to it. I sipped my coffee and flipped through my schedule for the day when the phone rang. "Dr. Sophia, we have an emergency." "A very sick little girl needs urgent help," said the voice on the other end. I grabbed my emergency bag and coat, racing out the door. Little did I know, this call would change everything. I glanced at my phone to check the address again as I navigated the streets of our quiet neighborhood. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the houses. I felt a familiar mix of adrenaline and focus that always accompanied emergency calls. Arriving at the address, I noticed the house was quaint, nestled in a row of similar-looking homes. A woman, presumably the nanny, opened the door before I could even knock. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Dr. Sophia," she said, her voice trembling with worry. "Amelia is in the bedroom. She's burning up and can barely breathe." I followed her down a narrow hallway, my mind already running through potential diagnoses. As we entered the bedroom, my eyes fell on a small, pale girl lying on the bed. Her labored breaths and flushed cheeks signaled a serious condition. "Amelia, I'm Dr. Sophia. I'm here to help you," I said gently, kneeling beside her. I started my examination, noting her rapid pulse and high fever. As I checked her vitals, something caught my eye, a small birthmark on the nape of her neck. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze momentarily. That birthmark looked eerily familiar. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the doorway. I turned, and my breath caught in my throat. "Henry?" I gasped, feeling my world tilt on its axis. He looked as shocked as I felt, his face pale and eyes wide with surprise and despair. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" "I should be asking you that," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You're supposed to be on a business trip." Henry opened and closed his mouth a few times, searching for words. I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like," I echoed, my voice rising. "You're here with a sick child when you're supposed to be hundreds of miles away. How do you expect me to understand this?" The nanny, sensing the tension, tried to intervene. "Please, Dr. Sophia, Amelia needs help. Can we focus on her first?" Taking a deep breath, I turned back to the girl. "Of course," I said, pushing my personal turmoil aside. "Let's get her stabilized." I administered medication to reduce her fever and ease her breathing. Amelia's condition started to improve, and the color slowly returned to her cheeks. As I worked, Henry hovered nearby, his presence a constant reminder of the questions swirling in my mind. Once Amelia was stable, I stepped out into the hallway with Henry. The nanny stayed with the girl, giving us a moment of privacy. "Start talking, Henry," I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper, but laced with fury. "Who is Amelia, and why are you here?" Henry ran a hand through his hair, his face etched with worry. "Sophia, I swear, it's not what you think. I'm helping her. She's in a difficult situation." I narrowed my eyes, crossing my arms. "A difficult situation? And you couldn't tell me about this? You lied about your business trip, Henry. What else are you hiding?" He looked down, avoiding my gaze. "It's complicated. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I spat, the anger boiling over. "By lying to me? By hiding a sick child? This isn't about protection, Henry. This is about trust." Before he could respond, the nanny called out, "Dr. Sophia, Amelia needs to go to the hospital. She's stable for now, but she needs more care." I turned on my heel, leaving Henry standing in the hallway. "We're not done with this conversation," I said over my shoulder. As I prepared Amelia for transport, my mind raced with the implications of what I had just discovered. This emergency call had upended my life in a matter of minutes, and I knew it was only the beginning. Back at the clinic, I couldn't shake the image of Amelia's birthmark from my mind. The resemblance she bore to Henry was uncanny, and it gnawed at me throughout the day. I pushed through my appointments mechanically, my thoughts constantly drifting back to that moment when I saw Henry in Amelia's house. That evening, as I drove home, I rehearsed what I would say to Henry. My emotions were a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and a lingering sense of betrayal. I needed answers, and I needed them now. As I stepped through the front door, the house felt even emptier than usual. I found Henry in the living room, pacing back and forth with a phone clutched in his hand. He looked up as I entered, his face drawn and tired. "Sophia," he began, his voice strained, "we need to talk." I dropped my bag on the floor and crossed my arms, trying to steady my voice. "Yes, we do. Who is Amelia? Henry? And why were you at her house when you were supposed to be on a business trip?" He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and frustration. "I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. Amelia, she's not my daughter." "Then what is she to you?" I demanded. "Because that birthmark, Henry, it's identical to yours. And the allergy. How do you explain that?" Henry took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. "Amelia is the daughter of a woman I was trying to help. Her mother was a client of mine, a single mother struggling with some legal issues. When she passed away, I felt responsible for Amelia. I couldn't let her end up in the system." "So you lied to me?" I said, my voice rising. "You lied about your business trip, about where you were. How could you not tell me about this?" "I didn't know how," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "I was trying to protect her and you. I didn't want to drag you into this mess." I shook my head, feeling the tears sting my eyes. "But you did, Henry. By hiding it, you made it worse. Do you have any idea how this feels?" Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. I wiped my eyes and walked over to open it, revealing Samuel, Henry's longtime friend and colleague. His expression was grave, and he held a briefcase in one hand. "Sophia, may I come in?" Samuel asked, his voice unusually soft. I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. "I assume you're here because of this situation." Samuel sighed and set his briefcase down. "Yes, I came to explain and hopefully provide some clarity. We've been trying to handle this without causing a scandal." "A scandal?" I repeated, incredulous. "So, this is about your reputations? Your careers?" "It's more than that," Samuel insisted. "Amelia's mother was involved in some very dangerous things before she passed. We didn't want that to spill over into our lives or yours. We thought we could manage it quietly, but you didn't manage it quietly," I cut in. "You kept secrets. You lied. Do you know how betrayed I feel right now?" Henry stepped forward, his expression pained. "Sophia, please, just listen. We're trying to protect everyone involved. I know we handled it poorly, but our intentions were good." "Good intentions?" I said bitterly. "Is that supposed to make me feel better? Because it doesn't." Samuel looked at me, his eyes sincere. "Sophia, I know this is a lot to take in, but we need to work together to figure out the next steps for Amelia. She needs us all right now." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'll help her because she's a child in need. But this doesn't change what you did, and it doesn't change how I feel." Samuel nodded. "That's fair. We just want to make sure she's safe." I looked at Henry, the man I thought I knew so well, and felt the weight of his betrayal settle over me like a dark cloud. "We'll figure this out for Amelia's sake. But don't think for a second that this conversation is over." Henry's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I understand, Sophia. And I'm sorry. I truly am. As the evening wore on, we discussed Amelia's future and what steps needed to be taken to ensure her safety. But the trust between Henry and me was shattered, and I couldn't help but wonder if it could ever be repaired. The days that followed were a blur of clinical routines and an uneasy atmosphere at home. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than Henry and Samuel had let on. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces didn't add up. Amelia's resemblance to Henry gnawed at me, and the late-night phone calls Henry made only fueled my suspicions. One evening, after another long day at the clinic, I decided I needed answers. I found Henry in his study, surrounded by stacks of legal documents. He looked up as I entered, his face weary but guarded. "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Sophia, I've told you everything I know. What more do you want?" "The truth," I replied firmly. "The whole truth. I can't keep living like this, constantly wondering what else you're hiding." Henry's eyes flickered with frustration. "I've been honest with you. I told you about Amelia, about her mother. What more do you need?" "I need to know why Amelia has the same birthmark and allergy as you," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "These aren't just coincidences, Henry. There's something you're not telling me." He ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn. "Sophia, I swear, Amelia is not my daughter. I can't explain the similarities, but I promise you I'm not hiding anything else." I crossed my arms, not convinced. "Then let me help you. Let me see the legal documents, anything that might explain this. I'm a doctor, Henry. I deal with facts and evidence." He hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. "Fine, but you won't find anything that proves otherwise." As I pored over the documents Henry reluctantly provided, a knock on the door interrupted us. Samuel entered, his face tense with concern. "Am I interrupting?" he asked, glancing between us. "No, Samuel," I said, waving him in. "In fact, maybe you can shed some light on this. Why does Amelia have the same birthmark and allergy as Henry?" Samuel's eyes widened in surprise. I didn't know about the birthmark. Or the allergy. That's strange." "Strange?" I echoed. "It's more than strange. It's suspicious." Samuel took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Sophia, I understand your concerns. But sometimes coincidences do happen. Maybe it's just that, a coincidence." I shook my head, feeling the weight of the situation. "I don't believe in coincidences like this, Samuel. There's more to this story, and I intend to find out what it is." Henry stood up, his frustration boiling over. "What do you want me to say, Sophia? That I've been lying to you? That Amelia is my daughter? Because she's not. Then why can't you explain these similarities?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Why are there so many secrets?" Samuel stepped between us, raising his hands to calm the situation. "Please, both of you, let's not turn this into a fight. We need to stay focused on Amelia and what's best for her." I took a step back, trying to rein in my emotions. "You're right, Samuel. But this mistrust is eating away at me. I need to know the truth for my own sanity." Henry's shoulders slumped, and he looked at me with a mixture of desperation and resignation. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I really am. But I don't have the answers you're looking for. I just want to protect you and Amelia." "I want to believe you," I said softly, feeling a tear slip down my cheek. "But right now, I don't know what to believe." Samuel nodded slowly. "We'll keep looking for answers. We'll figure this out together. But for now, let's focus on Amelia's well-being. That's what's most important." As I left the study, my heart heavy with doubt, I knew that my search for the truth was far from over. The suspicion lingered, casting a shadow over every interaction with Henry. And until I found the answers, I feared that shadow would never lift. The tension in our home was palpable. Henry and I coexisted in a strained silence, our conversations stilted and filled with unspoken accusations. I couldn't let go of my suspicion, and it drove me to dig deeper into the circumstances surrounding Amelia. I needed to uncover the truth, even if it meant unraveling everything we had built. One evening, as Henry was out dealing with a late client meeting, I decided to visit Amelia. I needed to see her again, to observe her closely and perhaps uncover more clues. I drove to the house where she was staying with her nanny, my heart pounding with anticipation. The nanny, a kind woman named Clara, welcomed me in with a warm smile. "Dr. Sophia, it's good to see you. Amelia's in her room playing. Would you like to see her?" "Yes, thank you, Clara," I replied, forcing a smile. Amelia was sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by toys and books. She looked up and beamed when she saw me. "Dr. Sophia, are you here to play with me?" I knelt down beside her, my gaze drawn to the birthmark on her neck. "Hi, Amelia. I thought I'd come see how you're doing. Are you feeling okay?" She nodded enthusiastically. "I'm feeling much better. Clara takes good care of me." "That's good to hear," I said, studying her face for any sign of recognition. "Amelia, can you tell me more about your mommy?" Amelia's expression grew serious. "Mommy was very sick. She told me to be brave and that Mr. Henry would take care of me." My heart skipped a beat. "Mr. Henry? Do you mean my husband, Henry?" Amelia nodded. "Yes, he's very nice. He said he would make sure I'm safe." I felt a pang of sadness for the little girl. "Do you remember your mommy talking about Mr. Henry a lot?" "Sometimes," she said thoughtfully. "She said he was a good friend. But she never said he was my daddy." Before I could ask more, the doorbell rang. Clara excused herself to answer it, leaving me alone with Amelia. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "Amelia," I began gently, "can you tell me about any other friends your mommy had?" She shook her head. "I don't remember many. Mommy said we had to be careful." I was about to ask more when Clara returned, looking flustered. "Dr. Sophia, there's someone here to see you." I stood up, puzzled, and followed her to the living room. To my surprise, Samuel was standing there, looking as stern as ever. "Sophia," he said, his tone cautious. "I didn't expect to find you here." "I came to see Amelia," I replied, crossing my arms. "What are you doing here, Samuel?" He glanced at Clara, who quickly made herself scarce. "We need to talk. Privately." I led him to the kitchen, closing the door behind us. "What's going on, Samuel? Why are you here?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Sophia, there's something you need to know. Something Henry and I didn't tell you before." My heart sank. "What is it?" Samuel took a deep breath, his expression pained. Amelia's mother, Maria, was involved in some dangerous activities. She got mixed up with the wrong people, and when she realized the danger, she reached out to Henry for help. That's how he got involved. I felt a wave of anger and frustration. "Why didn't you tell me this before? Why all the secrecy?" "Because it's not just about Maria," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "It's about Amelia's safety. We didn't want to put you or her in more danger by revealing everything. And there's more." I braced myself for the worst. "What more, Samuel?" He hesitated, then met my gaze with a look of resignation. "Maria and Henry were close. Very close. It's possible that Amelia is Henry's daughter. But we never confirmed it because Maria passed away before we could get any answers." The room seemed to spin around me. "So, you're saying there's a chance Amelia is Henry's daughter, and you both kept this from me." Samuel's eyes were filled with sorrow. "We didn't know how to tell you, Sophia. We were trying to protect everyone involved. But the truth has a way of coming out, and I'm sorry it had to be like this." I took a shaky breath, the weight of his words sinking in. "I need to talk to Henry. We need to do a DNA test. I can't live with this uncertainty any longer. Samuel nodded. I understand. Just be careful, Sophia. There are still people out there who might want to harm Amelia. We need to handle this delicately. As Samuel left, I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a fierce determination to uncover the truth. I wouldn't rest until I knew for sure who Amelia's father was and why Henry had kept this from me. The hidden truths were starting to surface, and I was determined to bring them all to light. After Samuel's revelation, my mind raced with the implications. I couldn't believe Henry had been involved so deeply with another woman, let alone that he might be Amelia's father. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but there was no time to wallow in it. I needed to confront Henry and uncover the truth once and for all. When Henry returned home that evening, he seemed exhausted. I waited until he had settled in before broaching the subject. Henry, we need to talk, I said, my voice steady but cold. He looked up, sensing the gravity in my tone. What is it, Sophia? I took a deep breath. Samuel came to see me today. He told me about Maria and the possibility that Amelia might be your daughter. Henry's face went pale, and he took a step back. Sophia, I can explain. I held up a hand to stop him. No more explanations. No more lies. We need to do a DNA test to know for sure. I can't live with this uncertainty any longer. Henry swallowed hard, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and regret. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? I asked, my voice cracking. Why all the lies? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was trying to protect you, Sophia. I didn't want to hurt you or put you in danger. Maria's situation was complicated, and I thought keeping it from you was the best way to keep you safe. Safe from what? I demanded. From the truth? From the possibility that you have another child? From the people who were after Maria? He said quietly. She got involved with some dangerous individuals, and they were after her. When she died, I promised to take care of Amelia and keep her safe. I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. And you thought lying to me was the best way to do that. Henry looked down, his shoulders slumping. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. We need to get the DNA test done as soon as possible. I need to know the truth, Henry. For my own sanity and for Amelia's sake. Henry nodded, his expression filled with resignation. I understand. I'll arrange it. As we waited for the DNA test results, the tension in our home grew even more unbearable. I could barely look at Henry without feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. The web of lies he had spun around us was suffocating, and I couldn't wait to break free from it. One evening, while I was reviewing patient files in my home office, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Samuel. Samuel, we need to meet. There's more you need to know. Can you come to my office tomorrow? I stared at the message, my heart pounding. What more could there be? Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him the next day. The following afternoon, I walked into Samuel's office, my nerves on edge. He greeted me with a grim expression, motioning for me to sit down. Sophia, thank you for coming, he began, his tone serious. There's something I haven't told you yet, something that complicates things even further. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What is it, Samuel? He took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto mine. Amelia's mother, Maria, was not only involved with dangerous people. She was also part of a larger scheme. She was using Amelia as leverage to get protection and money from powerful individuals. I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of scheme? Maria was blackmailing some very influential people, he explained. She had information that could ruin their careers and lives. When she realized she was in too deep, she turned to Henry for help. That's why he felt obligated to protect Amelia. My mind raced, trying to process this new information. So, you're saying Henry got involved to protect Amelia from Maria's enemies? Samuel nodded. Exactly. And because of the nature of the information Maria had, those people are still out there, looking for any loose ends to tie up. I felt a surge of anger. Why didn't you tell me this before, Samuel? Why keep me in the dark? Because the more you knew, the more danger you were in, he said, his voice filled with regret. We were trying to protect you, Sophia. But I see now that keeping you in the dark only made things worse. I stood up, my resolve hardening. I need to know everything, Samuel. No more lies. No more half-truths. If I'm going to protect Amelia and myself, I need the full story. He nodded, a look of determination in his eyes. You're right. I'll tell you everything. But we need to be careful. The people Maria was involved with are still out there, and they won't hesitate to silence anyone who knows too much. As Samuel began to recount the full extent of Maria's involvement and the dangers surrounding Amelia, I realized just how deep the web of lies and deceit went. My life had been turned upside down, and the truth seemed more elusive than ever. But one thing was clear. I would stop at nothing to protect Amelia and uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The days leading up to the DNA test results were excruciating. Each moment felt like a lifetime as I replayed the conversations with Henry and Samuel in my mind, trying to piece together the fragments of truth from the web of lies. The tension in our house had reached a boiling point. I could barely look at Henry without feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. One evening, after an especially grueling day at the clinic, I found Henry in the kitchen, nursing a glass of whiskey. The sight of him so vulnerable and lost tugged at something deep within me, but my anger overshadowed any sympathy I might have felt. We need to talk, I said, my voice firm. Henry looked up, his eyes weary. I know, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. How did we get here, Henry? I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. How did we become strangers living under the same roof? Henry sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, Sophia. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was just pushing you away. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them away. Protecting me from what, Henry? From the truth. From your past mistakes. From the dangers Maria brought into our lives, he said, his voice breaking. I made a promise to her, and I couldn't break it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. But in keeping that promise, you broke the trust between us. How can I believe anything you say now? Henry looked at me, his eyes filled with pain. I don't know, Sophia. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm willing to try if you'll give me a chance. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from the lab with the DNA test results. My heart pounded as I opened it, the words swimming before my eyes. I read the results, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. Henry, the test. It says you're not Amelia's father. Henry closed his eyes, a look of profound relief washing over his face. Thank God, he whispered. But that doesn't change what I've done, Sophia. It doesn't change the lies. I nodded, my mind racing. No, it doesn't. But it means we can move forward, somehow. Henry looked at me, a flicker of hope in his eyes. I want to make things right, Sophia. I want to rebuild what we've lost. I sighed, feeling the weight of our situation pressing down on me. I don't know if we can, Henry, but I'm willing to try for Amelia's sake. The next few days were a blur of tension and uncertainty. Henry and I tried to navigate our new reality, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. One evening, as I was putting Amelia to bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. Dr. Sophia, are you and Mr. Henry mad at each other? She asked softly. I felt a lump form in my throat. No, sweetie, we're not mad. We're just trying to figure some things out. Amelia nodded, her eyes wide with understanding. I hope you can be happy again. I smiled, touched by her innocence. Me too, Amelia. Me too. The next morning, I woke up to find Henry sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of him. He looked up as I entered, his expression serious. Sophia, there's something I need to tell you, he said, his voice tense. I sat down, bracing myself for more revelations. What is it? Henry took a deep breath. I've been in contact with Samuel. We've decided to come clean about everything. We're going to the authorities. I felt a mix of shock and relief. Are you sure that's the right thing to do? He nodded, his eyes filled with determination. It's the only way to put an end to this. We need to tell the truth, no matter the consequences. I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. Then we'll do it together. We'll face whatever comes together. Henry squeezed my hand, a look of gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, Sophia. I don't deserve your support, but I'm grateful for it. As we prepared to face the authorities, the weight of our decision hung heavy over us. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were taking a step toward the truth, toward healing. It wouldn't be easy, but it was the only way forward. Later that day, we met with Samuel at his office to discuss our plan. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of resolve in the air. We need to be careful, Samuel said, his tone serious. There are still people out there who might not want the truth to come out. Henry nodded. We understand the risks, but it's the only way to protect Amelia and set things right. I looked at Samuel, a question burning in my mind. Samuel, do you think we're doing the right thing? He met my gaze, his expression thoughtful. Yes, Sophia. It's time to stop living in fear and deception. It's time to face the truth, no matter the consequences. As we left Samuel's office, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. We were stepping into the unknown, but we were doing it together. The web of lies was beginning to unravel, and with it, the hope for a new beginning. The day we decided to go to the authorities was a whirlwind of emotions. Henry, Samuel, and I had agreed to meet at the police station in the afternoon. I felt a mixture of dread and relief, knowing that we were finally going to expose the truth, but also fearing the repercussions it would have on our lives. As we entered the police station, the cold, sterile environment seemed to amplify my anxiety. We were directed to a small, dimly lit room where a detective named Rodriguez was waiting for us. Please, have a seat, Detective Rodriguez said, his voice calm but firm. I understand you have some important information to share. Henry and Samuel exchanged nervous glances before Henry spoke up. Detective, there's something we need to confess. It's about a girl named Amelia and her mother, Maria. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Go on. Henry took a deep breath, his voice trembling slightly. Maria was involved with some dangerous people. When she realized she was in too deep, she turned to me for help. She was being blackmailed, and when she died, I promised to take care of her daughter, Amelia. But in doing so, I kept a lot of secrets from my wife, Sophia, and the authorities. Samuel interjected, his voice steady. We were trying to protect Amelia, but we made mistakes. We lied and covered up the truth, thinking it was the best way to keep her safe. But now, we see that it was wrong. Detective Rodriguez listened intently, taking notes. This is a serious matter. Do you have any evidence to support your claims? I nodded, handing over a folder filled with documents and photographs. These are records of Maria's dealings and the threats she received. There's also the DNA test results showing that Henry is not Amelia's biological father. The detective flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll need to investigate further, but it looks like you did the right thing by coming forward. As we left the police station, I felt a sense of relief, but also an overwhelming sadness. We had done the right thing. but the consequences were just beginning to unfold. Back at home, Henry and I sat in the living room, the weight of our confession hanging heavily between us. "Sophia," Henry began, his voice breaking. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that everything I did was because I thought it was the best way to protect you and Amelia." I looked at him, my heart aching. "I understand why you did it, Henry, but the lies and secrets have broken something between us. I don't know if we can ever repair it." He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I know, and I'm so sorry for everything." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Samuel, his face pale and tense. "Sophia, Henry, there's something you need to see," he said, handing us a newspaper. The headline read, "Prominent lawyer and doctor involved in scandal. The truth about Amelia." I felt my stomach drop as I read the article. The story had leaked to the press, and now our private nightmare was public. "This can't be happening," I whispered, my hands trembling. Henry looked devastated. "Who could have done this?" Samuel sighed, his expression grim. "It must have been someone who knew Maria's story. But now, the whole city knows. Our careers, our reputations, everything is at risk." As the news spread, the backlash was immediate. Patients started canceling their appointments with me, and Henry's clients began withdrawing their cases. The media camped outside our house, and our phones were inundated with calls from reporters. One evening, as I was trying to comfort Amelia, who had been confused and frightened by the sudden attention, Henry came into the room, looking defeated. "Sophia, I think it's time for us to make a public statement," he said quietly. "We need to tell our side of the story." I nodded, knowing he was right. We can't hide from this anymore. The next day, we held a press conference in front of our house. Cameras flashed and microphones were thrust toward us as we stood together, ready to face the world. Henry spoke first, his voice steady but emotional. "I want to apologize to my wife, Sophia, and to everyone who has been affected by this situation. I made mistakes, and I kept secrets, thinking I was protecting my family. But I see now that the lies have only caused more harm." I took a deep breath before speaking. We did what we thought was best to protect a little girl who had lost her mother. But in doing so, we made choices that have hurt many people. We are deeply sorry for the pain and confusion this has caused. As we finished our statements, the reporters bombarded us with questions, but we held our ground, answering as best we could. When it was finally over, we retreated back into our house, feeling utterly drained. That evening, as we sat in silence, the reality of our situation began to sink in. Our lives had been irrevocably changed, and there was no going back. Henry broke the silence, his voice filled with sorrow. "Sophia, I know we've reached the breaking point. But I want you to know that I will always be here for you and Amelia, no matter what." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I know, Henry, but we need to figure out what our new normal will be." As the days turned into weeks, we began to pick up the pieces of our shattered lives. Amelia, who had been the innocent victim in all of this, became our focus. We did our best to provide her with a sense of stability and love, even as we navigated the fallout from our public confession. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: we would face it together, one step at a time. The weeks following our public confession were some of the hardest of my life. The media frenzy eventually died down, but the consequences of our actions were far-reaching. Henry's law firm asked him to step down, and I faced the board of the hospital where I worked. The trust and respect we had built over the years were in tatters, but amidst the wreckage, we found something new: clarity and a sense of purpose. Henry and I decided it was time to leave the city. The memories here were too painful, and we needed a fresh start, especially for Amelia. We chose a small coastal town several hours away, a place where the air was salty, and the people were more interested in fishing and local gossip than in our past scandal. As we packed up our house, I felt a mix of sadness and hope. Amelia's cheerful chatter as she helped us pack her toys was a reminder of why we were doing this. She deserved a happy, carefree childhood away from the shadows of our mistakes. On the day of the move, as we loaded the last box into the car, Henry turned to me, his eyes filled with a determination I hadn't seen in a long time. "Sophia, I know things will never be the same, but I promise you, we'll build something better. For Amelia, for us." I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "We'll do it together, Henry, one step at a time." Our new home was a charming cottage with a view of the ocean. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, a constant reminder of nature's resilience and power. Amelia quickly adapted to her new surroundings, making friends with the local children and starting school with an enthusiasm that warmed my heart. One evening, after we had settled in, Henry and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, a beautiful end to a day filled with promise. "Sophia," Henry began, breaking the comfortable silence. "I've been thinking a lot about what comes next for us. I know we've lost a lot, but we've also gained something precious, each other and a chance to start over." I looked at him, seeing the man I fell in love with, not the one entangled in lies. "You're right, Henry. We have a second chance. Let's make the most of it." He took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "I've decided to take up teaching law. There's a community college nearby, and they need someone to teach part-time. It's not the same as practicing, but it's a way to give back and stay connected to what I love." "That sounds perfect," I said, smiling. "And I've been in touch with the local clinic. They're understaffed and need all the help they can get. It'll be different from the hospital, but I think it's exactly what I need." Henry squeezed my hand. "We're going to be okay, Sophia. More than okay. We're going to thrive." As the weeks turned into months, our lives began to take on a new rhythm. Henry loved his teaching job, finding joy in mentoring young minds. The clinic became my sanctuary, a place where I could use my skills to help people who truly needed it. One Saturday morning, as I was preparing breakfast, Amelia came running into the kitchen, her eyes wide with excitement. "Mom, Dad, look what I found." She held up a small, intricately carved seashell. "It's beautiful, Amelia," I said, admiring the delicate patterns. "Where did you find it?" "On the beach. Can we go for a walk? Please?" Henry and I exchanged a smile. "Of course," he said, ruffling her hair. "Let's go explore." As we walked along the shore, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The future was uncertain, but we were facing it together, stronger than before. During our walk, we ran into one of our new neighbors, Mrs. Lawson, an elderly woman with a kind smile. "Good morning, Sophia, Henry, Amelia," she greeted us warmly. "How are you settling in?" "We're doing well, thank you," I replied. "We love it here. It's been a wonderful change for us." Mrs. Lawson nodded, her eyes twinkling with understanding. "Sometimes a new beginning is just what we need. This place has a way of healing old wounds." As we continued our walk, I reflected on her words. Our new beginning wasn't just about escaping our past. It was about embracing the future with hope and courage. That evening, after Amelia had gone to bed, Henry and I sat by the fire, the warmth of the flames mirroring the warmth in my heart. "Henry," I said softly, "I'm proud of us. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger." He looked at me, his eyes filled with love. "I'm proud of us too, Sophia, and I'm grateful every day for this second chance." I leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Here's to new beginnings," I whispered. "To new beginnings," he echoed, holding me close. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had faced our darkest moments and come out the other side, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Together, we could handle anything.